In the Warcraft series, one of the official factions is called Human, but when you look closely, that label doesn't really hold up. Aerial support? Dwarven. Siege support? Dwarven. Toward the end, almost all the range support? Dwarven. So today, let's take a look at who really deserves their name on the faction tag. When the first game, Warcraft Orcs and Humans, launched in 1994, the Dwarves weren't front and centre, but they were there. They were known as respected craftsmen, supplying the Kingdom of Azeroth with weapons, armour and siege technology, but there was no formal alliance. This part of the relationship was simply laying the groundwork for the alliance war machine we'd see blossom later. According to modern lore, Ironforge remained largely uninvolved in the First War militarily, but that doesn't mean the Dwarves were idle. The Bronzebeard Dwarves kept a wary eye on the world beyond their mountains, with emissaries and tradesmen still interacting with humans. They watched as Stormwind fell, not as a neutral party, but as a people waiting for the right moment to act. Unfortunately, Warcraft 1 wasn't blessed with the stout figures we love. They remained behind the scenes. Craftsmen, inventors, and quiet allies. Their moment would come, but for now they were watching and preparing. Luckily for us, come Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness, Blizzard obviously saw the error of their ways and decided the game needed more beard. As the Orcs poured through the Dark Portal and decimated Stormwind, the humans fled north to Lordaeron. A desperate council was called, and out of it came the Alliance of Lordaeron, a coalition of races who would stand together against annihilation. Among them, the Dwarves. In Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness, Dwarves become fully integrated into the human war effort. Though not playable as a standalone race, they were embedded deeply within the Alliance's roster. Their ingenuity, engineering and bravery could now be seen on the front lines. The first unit we see grace the battlefield with their presence is the Demolition Squad, a pair of bold sappers who hurled themselves into enemy walls and fortifications with high explosives. While they were a high-risk, high-cost unit in gameplay, the value in breaking through entrenched enemy lines was unmatched. This is a beautiful moment. It's here that we see a spark of legacy igniting. Though it's not clearly stated in canon, in the Warcraft RPG lore, which is now considered non-canon, claims that the Dwarves were the original inventors of black powder. While this hasn't been officially confirmed, it does align naturally with what we see in the games. And by the time of the Second War, Dwarves were the only major race fully integrating explosive technology into their military doctrine. Goblins did appear on the Horde side as mercenaries, bringing sappers, alchemists and zeppelins into play, but their role was limited and transactional. The Dwarves, by contrast, forged explosives into the very heart of the Alliance's siege and engineering core. From breaching walls to aerial combat support, black powder wasn't just a tool, it was now part of the Dwarven identity. It's also worth noting that at this point Ironforge was not spared from the war. The Orcs, under Doomhammer's leadership, launched an invasion into the homeland of Khazmodan. Their objective? Conquer the Mountain Kingdom and seize its forges. Though many outposts fell and the region suffered greatly, the city of Ironforge itself, built deep within the mountain, held strong. The Dwarves resisted behind ancient gates and mountain pass fortresses, their defences unbreakable. But the Dwarves weren't only fighting underground. One of their most iconic contributions came from the skies, the Griffin Riders. These fierce warriors of the Wild Hammer clan were introduced in the second game. With storm hammers and unshakable courage, they brought the fury of the mountain skies to bear. Their greatest enemy? The enslaved red dragons of the Horde. Controlled by the Dragonmaw clan through the Demon Soul artifact, these once noble dragons had been twisted into war machines, but the Wild Hammer dwarves met them head on. The skies above the battlefield became a clash of flame and thunder, wings and war hammers. Leading the Wild Hammer aerial assault was Kurdran Wildhammer, Thane of Eerie Peak, and a hero of the Second War. In Beyond the Dark Portal, the expansion to Warcraft 2, Kurdran serves as one of the Alliance's key champions. Riding his griffin Skyrie, Kurdran fought not only in the skies of Azeroth, but led the charge through the Dark Portal itself into the Orc homeland of Draenor. His exploits are explored further in the novel Warcraft Beyond the Dark Portal by Aaron Rosenberg and Christy Golden, where Kurdran is depicted as a bold scout and a fierce warrior, navigating Draenor's chaotic terrain and battling the Horde's forces directly. He famously slays 9 red dragons, helps uncover critical enemy movements, and becomes a vital part of the mission to stop Nazul's apocalyptic plans. Kurgan's role shows us more than just another dwarven soldier. He was a leader, a hero, and a living legend, elevating the presence of dwarves from supporting engineers to mainline warriors of renown. The popularity of the dwarf Griffin Riders would live on well past Warcraft 2 and would eventually make it onto the cover of the MMO World of Warcraft and even become eternalized as a statue for WoW's 20th anniversary. While the dwarves didn't have a full roster of units just yet, their impact was felt in every blast, every wing swoop, and every innovation. They helped to define the technological and aerial might of the Alliance. Now, according to World of Warcraft Chronicle, this was the era when dwarves began to step out of seclusion. The Bronzebeards allied deeply with the humans, the Wildhammers returned to the world stage, and dwarven traditions spread through the Alliance. This was a true forging of bond between dwarfkind and the Greater Alliance. No longer just craftsmen or allies at the edge, the dwarves were warriors, pioneers and heroes. In Warcraft 2, they didn't just support the Alliance, they were part of its now beating heart. By the time of Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, dwarves had become fully entrenched in the military machine of the Alliance. No longer confined to the sidelines, they now fielded a diverse array of units and contributed significantly to the Alliance's strength in both lore and gameplay. One of the most iconic dwarven units to this day, the Riflemen, represents the evolution of dwarven black powder warfare. These soldiers stood on the front lines with blunderbuss powered by centuries of refined engineering. Unlike the fragile, suicidal sappers of old, Riflemen brought calculated firepower to the battlefield, able to deal sustained range damage with the grit and durability dwarfkind is known for. Following closely behind them came the mortar teams, artillery specialists who embodied the dwarves' mastery of explosive ordnance. With calculated arcs and thundering blasts, they broke through enemy formations and shattered fortifications. Their presence marked a shift in Alliance warfare, from swords and magic to trusty steel and firepower. But dwarven warfare wasn't just about infantry. The siege engine, a heavily armoured steam-powered tank, emerged as the pinnacle of dwarven invention. Entirely mechanical and unrelenting, these machines could crush fortresses and undead constructs alike. Though not explicitly labelled as dwarven in-game, their design, engineering and deployment alongside riflemen and mortar teams clearly reflects Ironforge's industrial hand. You'll also find these parked outside of Ironforge in World of Warcraft, really cementing the fact that these are dwarven inventions. And while in Warcraft 2 the flying machines were piloted by gnomes, their Warcraft 3 counterpart reveals a shift. The unit's description on the official website confirms a dwarven pilot behind the controls, signalling a unification of dwarven innovation with aerial warfare. These nimble aircraft provided reconnaissance and air-to-air combat. And, as a side note, it hurts me to see that in Warcraft 3 Reforged, they've changed the pilot from a dwarf to a gnome. Disgusting. Despite this, aerial domination remains that of the dwarves, because in Warcraft 3 we yet again see the return of the Griffin Riders with thunderous glory. Mounted on majestic beasts and wielding their trusty storm hammers, these warriors continued the legacy of Kurgan and the Wildhammer clan. Their aerial assaults became vital in countering the undead's flying abominations like the Frostworm, turning the skies once again into a thundering war zone. Due to the setting of the game being back in Azeroth, we don't actually see the return of Kurgan Wildhammer himself. We do, however, see a glorious new dwarven hero step into the battlefield, the Mountain King. Among the dwarves' most iconic figures is the Mountain King, a hero representing the raw might and resilience of dwarven warriors. So iconic did the Mountain King become that his abilities from Warcraft 3 made it into World of Warcraft as a key part of the warrior class's toolkit. The most well-known Mountain King in lore is Muradin Bronzebeard, brother to King Magni and mentor to Prince Arthas, who would one day become the infamous Lich King. Muradin was a key figure in the expedition in Northrend, working with Arthas in search of the legendary blade Frostmourne. A skilled warrior and explorer, Muradin's presence gave legitimacy and strength to the venture, until tragedy struck. Upon finding Frostmourne, Muradin translates the inscription, leading Muradin to tell Arthas to abandon the idea of taking up the blade. Arthas, consumed by the need for vengeance at this stage, throws caution to the wind and takes up the blade. When Arthas claimed Frostmourne, a surge of necromantic energy shattered the chamber, and a shard of ice struck Muradin, knocking him unconscious. Believing his friend dead, Arthas left him behind. Years later in World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, Muradin was revealed to have survived, suffering from amnesia and eventually rising as leader of the Frostborn Dwarves in Northrend. With the introduction of all these new Dwarven units, the Dwarves are now deeply interwoven into the human faction. While Warcraft 3 doesn't allow for separate racial factions within the Alliance, when we break it down by unit origins, excluding buildings and summonable units, the numbers speak for themselves. You've got 6 Dwarven units: Rifleman, Mortar Team, Flying Machine, Siege Engine, Griffin Rider, and the new Mountain King hero. For the Elves, you've got 5 units: Sorceress, Priest, Blood Mage, Spellbreaker, and Dragonhawk Rider. And the humans also have 5 units: the Peasant, Footman, Knight, Archmage, and Paladin, for a total of 16 units. This means, even with the inclusion of the humble Peasant, Dwarves still represent the largest share of unique units in the Alliance. Their role extends far beyond novelty at this stage. They form the very skeleton of the faction's technological and tactical power, being the sole race that gives the Alliance its siege, aerial, and ranged combat capabilities. So, from silent allies in the shadows to thunderous champions on the front line, the Dwarves have forged their legacy in grit, fire, and loyalty. They built the weapons, they held the line, and they brought down the skies upon their foes. This isn't just a tale of stone and steel, it's the heartbeat of the Alliance, echoing from the halls of Ironforge to the battlefields of Azeroth. So, you tell me, should it really be called the Human Faction? If we're not going to call it Dwarves and Friends, then I'd settle for the Alliance. Thank you so much for making it this far into the video. If you'd like to hear more deep dives into Dwarven legends, leave a like and subscribe, it really helps the channel. Thanks again.